which versions of .NET and Visual Studio will be used in this course. This course was created using the versions of .NET and Visual Studio that you see on this slide. I will show you how to install these versions later in this module. Everything that you will learn in this course applies to these versions of .NET and Visual Studio. The WPF concepts that you will learn in this course are also valid for older versions of .NET and Visual Studio, but I cannot guarantee that everything will work with older versions. Now let's take a look at the module outline. First, you will learn in this module what the Windows Presentation Foundation is. After that, I will show you what you will learn in this course, and I will also show you how this course is structured. Then you will create already your first WPF application. First, you will learn how to set up your environment. Next, you will create and explore a WPF project. And finally, I will ensure that you understand how files are generated behind the scenes in a WPF project. Now let's start and let me show you what the Windows Presentation Foundation is. The Windows Presentation Foundation, or short WPF, is a user interface framework that you can use to build Windows desktop applications with .NET and C#. WPF is part of .NET since 2006. This means that it is a very major framework. Actually, many enterprise applications are built with WPF. For example, Visual Studio itself is a WPF application. WPF is also open source. You find the source code on github.com/.net/WPF. For you as a software developer, it is important to know that WPF has several powerful features to develop desktop applications for Windows. First of all, there is the Extensible Application Markup Language, or short XAML. XAML is an XML-based language that is used in WPF to create user interfaces. Usually, you define a user interface in XAML and you implement the logic in C#. This leads to a clean separation between user interface and user interface logic, which makes it easier to maintain your application. WPF has also a powerful data binding engine that allows you to bind visual elements in your user interface to objects that contain the data for your user interface. Data binding is the feature that enables the so-called Model View ViewModel pattern, or short MVVM. This is a popular pattern for WPF applications that leads to a very clean separation between the user interface and the user interface logic. That separation allows you to create more maintainable and more testable applications. The next powerful feature of WPF is layout. You can use layout panels like Grid and Stack Panel to arrange the elements in your user interface. You can even nest these layout panels as deep as you want, and this allows you to implement really complex screen layouts. WPF has also the concept of styles and templates. Styles and templates allow you to create a custom but consistent look for the elements in your application, like for example for buttons and text boxes. You can find all these features and even more in the official documentation from Microsoft. I recommend you to browse through the official docs because WPF has even more features than these that you see here on this slide. But I think that the features that you see here on this slide are actually the features that you definitely need to know to be able to build and maintain WPF applications. After you have watched this course, you will know about all these features and you will know how to use them to work successfully on your own WPF projects. Let me show you now what you will learn in this course and how this course is structured. To watch this course, no prior WPF knowledge is required. You should be familiar with the basics of .NET and C#, but you don't have to know anything about WPF. The goal of this course is that you will be able to create and maintain WPF applications. To do this, you need to know how to use different WPF features like SAML, layout, data binding, the MVVM pattern, SAML resources, and styles and templates. To learn all of this, you will work in this course together with me for the Wired Brain Coffee company. Wired Brain Coffee is a fictitious company that has coffee shops around the world. They are building a WPF application to manage their customers. Let's switch to my desktop and let's have a quick look at the application. This is the application and how it will look like at the end of this course. You can see on the left side is a list of customers, and on the right side you see the details of the selected customer. This means you can browse here through the customers. You can also add and delete customers, and with this button here, you can move the navigation to the right side of the main window. Let's move it back to the left side. Beside this view for customers, the application has also a view for products. When you select here in the main menu Products, you can see the coffees of the Wired Brain Coffee company with a short description. Via the main menu, you can navigate back to the customer's view. So, this is the application. It is not a super complex application, but it contains everything that you need to know to create and maintain more complex and bigger WPF applications. Now, let me also show you how this course is structured. This course has several modules, and you are currently watching this first module here. The modules build on each other, so I recommend you to watch one module after the other. In this first module, you learn how to create a WPF application. In the next module, you will learn how to instantiate objects in SAML. Then you will learn how to build the user interface of the customer's application with the layout panels of WPF. After that, I will teach you how to organize your code with user controls, and then you will learn how to apply data binding and the model view model pattern to implement the logic for your application. Next, I will show you how to execute code with WPF commands and how to create reusable resources in SAML. Then you will learn how to define a look for your data with data templates, how to set up and use dependency injection in your WPF application, and how to style your application. You will learn how to change the look of WPF controls with control templates and how to validate user input in your application. Finally, you will learn how to use the tools in Visual Studio to debug your WPF application. Note that you can download exercise files for this course from the course homepage on pluralsight.com. The exercise files contain the code before and after every module. This means, if you want, you can code along in every module. I recommend to do that, because that way you will get the most out of this course. But if you want, you can also just lean back and watch. Now, in this module, let's create your first WPF application. To do this, I will show you in the next clip how to set up your environment. To work with the code of this course, you need to install Visual Studio 2022. You can download it from visualstudio.com. In this course, I use the free Community Edition of Visual Studio 2022. If you have installed the Professional or the Enterprise Edition, that is fine too. When you install Visual Studio, you need to select the workload .NET Desktop Development. Then you will get everything that you need to build WPF applications. Let me show you now in this demonstration how you can check your existing installation of Visual Studio. Let's switch to my desktop. I assume you have already downloaded and installed Visual Studio from visualstudio.com. After that, you find on your machine the Visual Studio installer. When you open the Visual Studio installer, you can see the Visual Studio version that you have installed. Now let me click here on the Modify button to check the workloads that are installed on my machine. You can see I am here under Workloads, and here you see the workload .NET Desktop Development is actually installed. If this workload is not installed, you can check it here and modify your Visual Studio installation. Then you are ready to build WPF applications. In the next clip, let's create and explore a WPF project. In this demonstration, you will create and explore a WPF project. Let's switch to Visual Studio. Here in Visual Studio, let's select from the File menu, New Project. In this dialog, I have selected here already C# so that we see only C# project templates. Now let's search in these templates for WPF. Here you see the template to create a WPF application. Let's select this template and let's click on the next button. I call the project wiredbraincoffee.customers.app. Let's keep the location and the solution name and let's click on Next. I also keep this .NET version and I click on Create to create the WPF project. Now let's take a look at the project in the Solution Explorer. As you can see, there is a main window SAML file and a main window SAML CS file, which is a so-called code behind file. These two files together define the main window of your WPF application. Then there is also an app.saml file and a corresponding code behind file. These two files define the application object of your WPF application. The application object is created at startup, and when you look into the app.saml file, you can see there is an application root element and the startup URI property is set to main window SAML. This means the application starts the main window when you run this WPF project. There is also an assembly info CS file for assembly attributes. Now let's open the main window SAML file and let's define a button in this file. First, I set the font size of this window to a value of 20. Now in this grid, let's define here a button element and let's set the content of that button to add customer. I close this element and I take here a look at the button in the Designer of Visual Studio. You can also view the SAML editor and the Designer at once by clicking here either on the vertical or on the horizontal split button. So let's split, for example, vertically, and now you see the SAML document on the right side and the Designer on the left side. You can also swap the two if you want. Seeing the Designer means that you can see the effects of the properties that you set in SAML. So for example, here on the button, I can set the horizontal alignment property to left. I also set vertical alignment to top, and I give the button a little margin. Now you see the button is in the top left corner of the main window. Besides setting properties on the button, you can also create event handlers for events, like for the click event. So when you define this attribute, Visual Studio suggests here to create a new event handler. I hit Enter to do this. Now you see here button_click. Let's go back to the Solution Explorer and let's open here the code behind file of the main window. In this file, you find the main window class and you see here the generated button_click event handler. Let me show you a little trick how you can give this event handler a custom name from the beginning. So let's remove it again here from the code behind file and let's go back to the SAML file. I remove here again the click attribute and I write again click. Now instead of selecting new event handler, I just write here the name that I want, for example, button@customer_click, and then you right click that name and you select from the context menu Go to Definition. Now you see Visual Studio just created the event handler with that name. Now let's actually do something here. Let's show a message box with the text customer edit. Now let's run the WPF application and let's see if everything